Hello and welcome to my channel, Studio ABC. Note that the C is not the letter C, but the word S-E-E, like we see art. I'm a visual art teacher. My name is Linda McIntosh, but most of my young students call me Miss Mac. My passion is teaching middle school. Although I retired many years ago, I came back to teach middle school students because I love that age. Let's learn about a contemporary artist and make art inspired by him. Okay, get ready, artists. I'm going to introduce you to one of my favorite artists. He's probably the most successful pop artist of this generation. You can see he's very shy. This man's name is Romero Britto, and you may not know what he looks like, but when you see his art, I'm sure you've seen his art somewhere, because it's everywhere. It's on Coca-Cola, it's on all kinds of products. Disney has even hired him to make art for them. His art has appeared on handbags, on backpacks, on cell phone covers, on watches, on Monopoly games, on spiral notebooks, keychains, even dog collars. With all of that, you probably don't find it surprising that he's also making face masks. This is a Bentley design that Britto made for Bentley Automobile in 2009. And here's the Landshark Stadium that is in Miami Beach. In 2008, Britto painted Landshark Stadium. And you can see little bits of his style in this if you look closely. If you're a big soccer fan, a few years ago, in 2014, Romero Britto designed this piece of artwork for the World Cup. In 2011, the Brazilian president asked Britto to create 10 original pieces and a logo for a storyline to celebrate the birth of healthy children. This run helmet was created by Britto for Helio Castroneves and was auctioned at an event and brought $20,000 US. I hope you've seen something that you recognize so far, but if you haven't, you'll definitely recognize some of his portrait art. Could you identify any of his portraits? What's that you say? That's not Romero Britto's work? No, you're right, but it is one of my favorite artists. And this is Romero Britto's work. See any similarities? Yes, he could do art parodies also. Britto liked to spread happiness and positive attitude. I believe Romero Britto has painted about every animal that you can think of, and in a happy way. If you'll look closely at his art now and start looking at what makes it a Romero Britto, you should be able to recognize them. While you take a look at these pictures to see some of the things that they have in common that makes it a Romero Britto, I'm going to explain something here. I clicked back on my video as I was making it and realized there were little popping sounds all over my video. Well, I'm not going to remake it, but I did close the door because my guys are playing pool in the other room. So it was like click, click every once in a while. All right, so let's go back to the lesson. First of all, we already established that he does happy themes. And we talked about him doing portraits. Here he is with Elton John and Hillary Clinton. And this is not Romero Britto. The portrait of Michelle and Barack Obama was presented to the president by Romero Britto's son. If I'm not mistaken, Britto's working on a portrait of Hello Kitty here. But what else do we know about his art? Let's take another look. I think the first thing that most people notice are the bright colors. And Romero Britto talks in a video that I watched that he says that his colors are consistent. He has a company mix his paint colors and he stays with them. Although they've evolved during his career. He has a lot of different colors that he uses now, and very seldom do you see any of his work that has a very limited palette to it. like the one shown here. I've watched several interviews with him, and I've noticed that he paints his paint first, and then he goes back with marker and puts in the lines. But I want you to look closely at his patterns and the stripes, the things in common, the stripes, the circles, the little squiggles. This summer I was in a museum that had some of his figurines, and I wanted to buy my own figurine. So I bought this little cat. And I was pretty proud of him, but I had always told my students, look closely in almost every picture he does. He has these figures that look like mathematical symbols. The same pattern was appearing in all of his work. Every time I picked up something, almost everything had the same symbols. Well, that intrigued me, and I thought, there has to be meaning behind this. There's a meaning behind this. It was even in his self-portrait. So I knew that he grew up poor, and I thought maybe it's, something to do that has very deep meaning. So I picked up my little cat, and I was looking at it, and I thought, I'm going to go research that. I'm going to find out what that symbol means. And the first thing I found was him talking about symbolism in his art, and I knew I was right. But he didn't explain what the symbolism was, and I was disappointed. And I kept looking and looking. Well, turns out it had deep meaning, all right. Take a look at his signature. What I was thinking was a mathematical pi symbol was actually the TTO at the end of his name. Well, with that mystery solved, let's make some Britto-inspired art. Okay, remember it's Britto-inspired, not Britto-copied. So look at some of the characteristics in his work and pick up on that and use it in your own work. I did forget to mention that back here I was going to tell you white spaces in his work are very limited most of the time. So most of it's color. I would like to see you use color and your own palette, but I definitely want to see some bold black lines because those are definitely going to help make this look like a Britto. Let's talk about the supplies that you're going to need. You're definitely going to need some paper. You will need a permanent ink black marker, and then you can choose to use whatever supplies you have to make the color. It might be colored pencils, it might be watercolors or oil pastels, whatever you have in your art supplies. I know some of you love using colored pencils. That's probably going to take longer to do, but I love colored pencils also. Also, I might say that I use a colored pencil to make my sketch because anytime I do something in color, I don't want that graphite pencil showing out from under my work. Use that colored pencil to draw the outline of a large figure in the center of the page. This is a suggestion. You may have your own way of doing it. Keep it simple with little detail. You can even use a word if you make the letters into shapes. So maybe bubble letters or block letters of some sort. You're going to divide the picture with a few straight lines, put some in the background, and then go to the figure and make some in the figure. And remember, that figure could be a shape, but it could also be an animal. So it needs to be a simple shape, like the outline of a cat, not every little whisker that it has. Try to create large areas instead of small ones. Okay, I already actually mentioned this, but divide the negative space around your figure with some of those straight lines and keep the shapes large instead of small. Because remember, you're going to fill some of those shapes, in fact, most of those shapes, with some kind of pattern. Britto used polka dots and stripes and hearts and flowers and things like that. He also used his name. Remember, you might want to use your initials or your name as over and over and over again as a pattern. Now, this is really important. You're going to use black marker to trace your lines, your colored pencil lines, but not all of them probably. But try to keep them balanced on your page. And the important thing I'm going to tell you is if you should happen to be using, if you have oil pastels, you definitely need to make those lines first. Romero Britto painted first and made his lines over the dry paint. But if you're using oil pastels, the marker doesn't do well over the oil. If you're going to use paint, I do suggest that you use watercolor because marker does work very well over watercolor. I'm going to review the procedure here with you. First of all, you're going to draw with probably colored pencil your shape or subject matter. Then you're going to break up the space inside the shape and in the background. Add the patterns that you want to use. And last, you will choose the order that fits your media best, and you'll add black line and color. If it's watercolor, there's no problem. You can do the black line after the watercolor, but if it's oil pastel, remember, that's going to be very difficult to add anything over the oils. If you're one of my classroom students, your self-evaluation is very short today. The first question is, how is your art like Romero Britto's? Now, what characteristics did you use that he used? What do you like about your art? And if you were going to start all over, what would you do differently next time? And if you're an adult watching this video, I hope that you would come in and join Studio ABC group in Facebook, on Facebook, and show your art, display your art, because we love to see what you're doing. If you have trouble finding us, just note the spaces between the words on Facebook, and also note that the C at the end is spelled S-E-E, because we see the art. We are visual artists. Studio A, B, C. And if you're age 18 or over, we'd love to have you there. Thanks for watching.